Hey everybody, today is November 1st, 2023. I am Gene and welcome to Hanging with Uncle. Before we get started, because I think we have an interesting show to give you this evening, please hit that subscribe button. We're really trying to grow our channel, and hit that like button, hit that thumbs up because it helps spread the word out to notify everybody, hey, we exist out here. And hit that notification bell on the right that let you know whenever we go live and put new content out there. And having said that, let's jump into it. But I want to kind of explain why when I have certain guests on the show that you don't see their faces. Okay, so as a retired law enforcement and detective and working undercover, I have worked with confidential informants before, and they're most effective when they remain anonymous. It's like if you're a spy, you don't want your cover blown, right? So that's why when we have my man on the street, you never see him, you only get to hear him. So welcome to the show, Brent.
Hey, thank you, Gene. Yeah, it's always great to be on your show, man. And yeah, that's why I actually go by Black a lot. I was always supposed to be kind of hidden, and I just had to come out a little bit more because our nation was such in a shit mess, really. In the last few years, I had to do something. So I'm glad I got an opportunity to talk on your show, brother. You're about the only person I would go on to do this with because of your background. It's because we do protect the thin blue line and our national lines,
Thank you.
and
I
we got to do
appreciate
it,
that.
man.
I appreciate that. So I kind of wanted to, we had an interesting discussion. And again, we can't duplicate it. It's kind of hard. I wish you guys could hear the pre-show discussions because I think they're more interesting. But there's a trial going on in Colorado, and what it is that a lawsuit has been brought based on the 14th Amendment, uh, chapter 3, that disqualifies someone from running or holding public office if they have previously taken an oath to defend the Constitution and then participated in an insurrection or attempt to overthrow the government. That's just really big paraphrasing, but that's what the lawsuit is about. So I'm just curious, if you've heard about it and if you've had, what is it that you've heard?
Yeah, and that I read in the papers, of course, the other day, and they've been talking about that really from the get go. So they mentioned the 14th Amendment while Trump was still president. So they started kind of mentioning it a few times, how this is not looking good after the insurrection. But the thing is they were talking about that insurrection or that Capitol thing on January 6th before it even happened. He was setting it up and talking about it for a while. So they were really talking about him about the 14th Amendment until after it happened, even though some of us knew that that would be a 14th Amendment violation, but the news got involved with it more after January the 6th.
I
But,
remember, now I remember talk about the 25th Amendment about him not being fit to serve while he was still president. But just me
yeah.
personally, I haven't heard anything about the 14th Amendment until after January 6th. So you'll have to share that with me where you got that because that would be interesting to know.
Yeah, I mean, it just is, I mean, for one, you did hear about a possible rally coming up, and you heard his rhetoric before January 6th saying there's election fraud, election fraud. Then there was a lot of markers saying that there might be something bad that might be happening, because he's trying to draw up the base for this to happen. So I'll look it up where I got the story from, but a lot of it's just gleaned too from knowing about law.
Yeah,
Like you know what the amendments are. I think there's 26 now or 27.
27.
27, yeah. So, if you pay attention to what the Constitution is, which people should, so as you hear events as they're happening, you don't have to depend on the media to tell you, because sometimes the media is telling you maybe a little bit too late in that. So that's why it's good to be educated. So that's why it's so good to know your Constitution and your state rights and how everything fits together, but they don't fit together neatly. So it's very hard to understand the difference between them all.
Well, I can tell you the Chapter 3 of the 14th Amendment is extremely unambiguous. It is very unabashed, direct to the point. There's no mistaking the verbiage of that clause of the 14th Amendment. I'm not going to read it verbatim. It's been read all over the news. You can look it up yourself.
Yep.
But I guess my thing is really like when I'm listening, because again, I'm registered to vote, no party preference. I don't just watch one news source. I do listen to right-wing media, and I'm listening to what they're saying about what's going on in Colorado. And in my opinion, they're still misleading and lying to the public, because I don't know if you've heard, but what I'm hearing, they're blaming Democrats because the Secretary of State of Colorado is a Democrat for trying to do election interference by keeping Trump off the ballot. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know if you're listening or heard any of that.
Yeah, no, that's a rallying cry from day one to try to get campaign contributions, basically. That's their whole basic contributions, pretty much, for the Republican Party. But that's not the case. That's not her fault.
No.
That's that. Tell us about that case.
Well, the truth is, number one, the Secretary of State cannot unilaterally decide who should and who should not be on the ballot. That would be equivalent to Mike Pence on January the 6th saying, you know what, yeah, we're going to send this back to the state legislatures. They don't have that authority. So this particular lawsuit in Colorado is brought by 6 voters. 4 of them are Republican, and 2 of them are listed as unidentified, which means they're like us. They're no party preference. We're not identified with any party. These are the 6 litigants that brought the lawsuit to invoke the 14th Amendment. And here's the funny part. They are suing the Colorado Secretary of State. She is listed as a defendant in this lawsuit. So I just want the truth out there before we have another situation like January the 6th, because they're getting the wrong information. They're being lied to. What do you think?
Is she being sued by those 6 people?
Yeah, 6 people. That's who brought the lawsuit in Colorado, suing the Secretary of State to invoke the 14th Amendment to keep Cadet Bone Spurs off the ballot.
Boy, I mean, it seems like they're working both ends of the straw there. They're lighting fires, they're lighting the wick on both sides there. So they want Trump off, and they're blaming her. And that's like a publicity stunt, it sounds like. I can understand why they would want that guy off the ballot for sure.
Well, the thing is, again, if you know your civics, if you know how your government works, and you know your Secretary of State does not have this authority, why are you lying to the people saying this is what's happening? Because that's what I'm hearing when I turn right-wing media on.
Yeah, that's all you've been hearing too, man. I mean, it's like I said, it's just their battle cry. They got such the weakest battle cry. And they keep on pushing. Some of them do. I mean, some are pushing election fraud still. I mean, my buddy just got something from John James in Michigan. saying that he thinks 50% of the election is fraud. 50%. How is that even possible? They were saying it's, they didn't do an investigation, unless it's over 1%. They proved that, I think, in like your state. How much money they spent on that? Jeez.
Much. So, but here's
Yeah,
the
too
thing.
much.
You asked the question, and I'm going to answer it. I'm not trying to interrupt your train of thought. They say this because the Supreme Court allows it. Campaign speech is not, you don't have to tell the truth because you're just interpreting it the way you see it. And that's how they get away with lying when it comes to campaign speech. But this just lying about how a process started and who started it and why it's going on in the first place, that is just so irresponsible. And again, January 6th happened in one place, that was at the Capitol. What if now, because of this, we have something kick off nationwide because of these lies and rhetoric? So I'm just, I guess that's kind of like my point, and I know that's in your wheelhouse.
Think, so I know congressmen have immunity, right? But now if you're not in Congress and you're just running for Congress, does campaign speech at that point is still immune?
Well, it's not so much immune, but you can't really be held responsible just because what you say isn't true. Unless, remember, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. And the immunity you have as an elected member of Congress is under the speech and debate clause, where what you say on the well of the House floor is protected speech. And personally, I think that needs to be revisited because that is on parallel with qualified immunity in law enforcement. That's what the speech and debate clause is. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. So I'll talk about the threat level. So as this is going up, they know what happened before the election last presidential cycle. They got, there were so many riots that started, all this misinformation, disinformation was going on, people were getting frantic, they weren't doing anything to calm it down. We kind of talked about it a little bit on the last episode, but you gotta tone down that rhetoric as it's happening. And if these people don't have they have immunity to everything, and then there's yellow journalism on top of that, this is going to cause the threat levels everywhere to go up. But when I look at Colorado, I remember the Black Klansman, and just knowing what Colorado and Black Wall Street and Tulsa, Oklahoma, the like Missouri riots in 21 was it?
Yeah.
Or 20? But there was a lot of hate that went on out there, and that hate is building. So when you look at Columbine and Aurora, the theater, and all those areas, there is some very radical people. Basically, your radicals that get kicked out of Texas, or eventually they get sick of Texas, they move to the mountains of like Colorado. So everywhere around Denver is some kind of more of a blue base, a Democratic base, but when you get out into those hills or mountains, it's a lot different, man. It's a different way of life out there, and they're very. Go ahead, man.
Sorry, I wanted to ask you a question before it slips my mind. I'm old. You mentioned about radicals, right? Now,
yep.
This is not the first time since January 6th that somebody has been removed from office because of the 14th Amendment. It happened in New Mexico where a county recorder was removed because he was there and made entry into the Capitol. He participated in an insurrection, so now he's no longer qualified. You didn't see a big uproar and not a lot of, protests when he got removed from office.
Yeah.
What is the difference now with the Mango Maniac and him being the 14th Amendment being applied to him versus lesser known Republicans who have suffered the same fate for their actions on January the 6th.
He's high drama. So he's going to get more eyes on the prize for the Republican Party, and they know it. So their base is going to work this. It's going to be a threat to your way of your Republican life. Cadet Bonespurns, or who I call Chump, basically, Chump is not going to be able to defend your laws and make America great again. So they know, even though that a lot of them don't want them to win the candidacy, this will still help stoke their the Republican basis, national committee. So they're going to start getting a lot of campaign contributions to spread out to different states to try to win off margins here or there. So they're trying to kind of influence the electorate through this. They know, and they do polls all the time, and how things are playing out. So do you want to talk a little bit about how a lot of people don't want him as a Republican, really? But they still want to use him?
I do. I wanted to segue, and because I was going to ask, number one, what you thought if he is successful in being removed from the ballot in Colorado. Remember, there are also lawsuits pending in Michigan and Minnesota for the same thing.
Yep.
What do you think the balance will be of those Republicans who really don't want Trump anymore and doing everything they can to get him out of the party versus, the radicals that you talked about? What do you think that balance is going to look like and how that's going to play out?
Well, I look at, who won the last election in Colorado, in Michigan, and Minnesota, and even though Michigan was the closest, it's still, because of Whitmer and different things going on, it seems like it's still going a little bit more bluish. So really, those are kind of throwaway states for the Republican Party. So even though it'd be nice to get them off the ballot, it really could help out another candidate that would get on the ballot. So if you remove them, and then he can't run again, then that will strengthen the next middle of the road Republican candidate that would come in. And when I look at, those three states and kind of what was happening and who left Congress and this and that, Paul Ryan's always been really kind of an interesting character. And he was in Minnesota, right? I think it was Minnesota. Oh, Wisconsin, okay. So, but his base is the Midwest. He knows he could probably draw from it. How he quit, I think he was Speaker of the House, and he quit as Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
Stepped down, and because I don't think when we look at, I just look at who could possibly win, whether it's not through any type of a political view. I just look at, basically D. Satan down there is desperate as heck. Yeah. He's flying in jetliners to Israel, bringing in food and weapons, and trying to bring out the, people in need, hostages, rescuing people. He's like some type of savior or something. But he could have been preventing this all along with his rhetoric. Really, he could have been.
I was just going to.
Go ahead, man.
I saw a poll today, just talking about this Satan. At least in South Carolina, there's a new number 2 on the Republican poll, and Nikki Haley has overtaken Ron DeSantis, at least in South Carolina. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and that's a big state. When you think about what happens during the election, you got Iowa, then which Iowa is really funny. People don't understand. It's not really an electorate vote. They do that for the caucus, yep. And then the next one is New Hampshire, which that is a true one, kind of, but it's smaller, and they don't put a lot of emphasis on it. but it's always about South Carolina, and then what do they call the 13? I think it happens all on the same day. That's a big,
they call
big
it
13.
Super
The what?
Tuesday.
Super Tuesday. Yeah, Super Tuesday. So, but if you look who won and influenced a lot to get Biden in office was that South Carolina Democrat, that black man, really helped set the stage for Good Time Bernie to go down and get Biden in.
Oh,
And
James Clyburn, yeah.
yeah, James Clyburn, yep. So you have, it's a big state to get early on. I don't think Nikki Haley would be a candidate that would win either. For one thing, of course, what do you think?
No, honestly, my thing is, and I don't want to get off topic, but I personally totally disagree with the premise that President Biden is too old. Number one, it violates the Americans, not with
Aging. No.
yeah, anti-aging. Thank you. And if that's the case again, okay, well then Warren Buffett shouldn't be wearing Berkshire Hathaway. David Koch shouldn't be running Koch Enterprises. Who else is like super in their 80s? The guy from Fox, man, Murdoch.
The guy from Berkshire.
In his 90s,
yep.
Running it. So to me, age discrimination is a non-issue. You're limiting yourself. Just, there's a lot of people that are incompetent at age 50 and a lot of people that are sharp as a tack at age 80.
Yep.
I like who Biden has surrounded himself with. He's not running the show, but he's put people around him that are capable of handling the positions in which they, oversee. So,
yeah, it's a team effort.
He's smart, put the best people around him. And
yep.
As long as he does that, I know he'll be fine. He knows how to make those decisions. He'll put those people around him to help make those decisions. I don't have that confidence in Connect Bone Spurs. And everybody else running on the Republican ticket, to me, I look at Tim Scott, Republican senator from South Carolina, who did not vote to convict on Trump's impeachments either time. It would have been too easy to stay out of this mess. You want to run for president, but you let this guy off the hook and let him on the street and still leaving him eligible for office. No, I don't support you. Nikki Haley was his UN ambassador. You know what she did and supported at the UN. So no, I don't support Nikki Haley. I could just go down the list, but nobody impresses me on that side of the ticket yet. I can't say anyone that I said, well, I guess I'd be all right with him or her. It just hasn't struck me.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of talk about Nikki Haley too for a minute. You mentioned the UN. So when the UN met, I think it was in an Arab nation. I don't know if it was like Qatar or someplace, but they met somewhere over in the Middle East, and it was 2018. So Nikki Haley made a fool of herself, basically. She tried to talk people into following her Palestinian Israeli deal, basically the deal of the century, don't support the two-state system, and you got to get behind this and cut off funding and blah, blah, blah. So she didn't get one vote for her resolution that she proposed. Usually you get a couple people on. There's a lot of people there, right?
Yeah.
Many nations. She didn't get one. She raised her hand for herself. And then about 2-3 weeks later, then the Palestinians used to get $300 million a year. And then after that, they cut off aid because they said there were terrorism going on there to $100 million. So what that did was that set the stage for more families to get worried and maybe pull out and try to get out of the Gaza area and here and there. So more radicals came in. There was less money available, so crime actually probably picked up. The UN, there wasn't enough food. Just when all these things happen, this actually creates a crisis. So a crisis doesn't happen overnight.
No.
It takes a long time to build. So when I look at what's going on in the Middle East, there's a lot of people that fought with that. I mean, on both sides, all nations, and it's unfortunate, but we'll go on from here.
I was just going to say, I agree with you, man. Chaos doesn't happen overnight, and enemies just don't pop up overnight. You cultivate them. You do somebody wrong. You've created a relationship based on animosity, which is how we need to realize how we create our own enemies. So I wish we could just sit down, go back to the very beginning, acknowledge the good things about, trying to settle Palestine and Israel together and what didn't work, and go from there instead of continuing to do wrong over and over again. Oh, Hamas is bad. Yeah, but you killed 10 innocent Palestinian kids. What do you think they're going to think about you? It's like, we create our own enemies. And I wish world leaders would understand that instead of always being so reactive. And I'll get off my soapbox now.
Yeah, what it's coming down to is, and you're seeing the hate build up too. It's not just Republican and Democratic Party fighting right now. We have a possible holy war going on in America. We have conflict between the Palestinian and Israelis too right now. So if you're looking at that from a systems lens, there's all these factors for violence coming up. So there has to be an action plan put in place. So what a few of us are trying to do is reach out to the religions. Right. We understand that to walk it back down, you got to walk it back down from common talking to religious leaders. So, and those people also affect how you vote too, because they hold a lot of sway over who's going to be who in office. And it seems like to me, I don't know if you see this or not, Gene, it seems like the Democrats have more of the Israelis on their side, while the Arabic Americans have more of starting to be the Republicans on their side a little bit. And if I look at what Russia has been doing, kind of letting them protest, and then the protests that are going on around here, I think they're trying to, maybe say, well, we're going to protect your speech, or we haven't seen it come out fully yet. We've seen it come out in Russia. So, and how Russia and Trump are really tight in some of the Republican parties. Is that how they're going to start handling this yet to stoke more chaos?
I've heard today, as a matter of fact, and we only have a couple of minutes left, but I heard him say today, Cadet Bonespurs, answering a question like, yes, if your country gets invaded by Russia and I am president, we will not be there to help you. And he's already going full on authoritarian. I just that's not weakness, that's stupidity. And I wish people would see that and realize this man is a fool and does not deserve to be anywhere near the White House. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, he was groomed, man, from, like I said, an early time on. There's so much. I just dislike the guy so much from a personal level, from meeting the dude, that I can't even begin to, just him weaponizing prophecy and just everything. I look at that guy as, as the Antichrist in a way. I mean, there's Antichrist, there's anti-Jews, there's anti-Muslims, there's anti-religion people, and that guy to me, is anti-religion. He doesn't really care. He just weaponizes religion against other people. He doesn't have a religious bone in his body. Definitely not his shins, right?
Yeah.
His doctor.
That brings me full circle to what we started the show on. Him being eligible or qualified to hold the office again. And just from your opinions, what I've heard, and I know lots of other people share the same opinion, that I hope the 14th Amendment is applied in a lot more states, and that means he's off the ballot and mathematically will not win the Electoral College. So that's my hope, man. That's my hope.
Yeah, I hope so too, brother. I do. Well, it's a good show, man.
Thank you very much for being on again, man, and look forward to having you on again.
Brother, good night.
Thank you. And that's all we have for tonight. Remember, be nice to one another, be kind, and treat each other the way you want to be treated. I am Gene. Thank you for hanging out with us. And Zane and I look forward to seeing you on Friday. Good night.